He said, you're really good at the facts, but you're not telling the story. He said, nobody cares about the facts unless there's a narrative you can place those facts in that they relate to.
Hey, welcome to 10X Your Team with Camden Otis. We're a father-son leadership podcast where we talk with other lifelong learners about making an impact and solving big problems. And, YouTube is unique. Camden, I kind of got on this horse this morning with a group of folks I'm with. And when it was my
Tropic Thunder.
When it was my turn to talk, I was like, all right, I know all y'all got a YouTube channel. It doesn't cost you anything. It's going to take you about 10 seconds. And folks, if you stumbled onto us right here, hit the stupid subscribe button. It costs you nothing. And you know what? If you're one of those people that can't figure out how to stop it from sending you an email or a message every time 10X Your Team posts a video and you don't want that, don't blame me. Don't blame Camden. And heck, don't blame our guest Paul, because you know what? It's your own damn fault. Figure your shit out. Dadgummit, I cussed. I told you I was fired.
Come on, Dad.
When the computer...
Those notification settings are so confusing, Dad. You got to, come on.
Oh, man. Just turn your phone. You know what else it is? Here. Boy, somebody pushed my button early this morning. It's still on. You know what else it is? It's the folks that say, they get a phone call at 11, 12 o'clock at night or a message, and they go, why is somebody texting me? Why is somebody... Turn your ringer off, people. There's tools for that. And you know what? If you can't figure it out, go to YouTube. And when you're on YouTube, subscribe to Camden Otis.
Back to that first problem.
There we go.
I can tell you were fired up. The way you hit that intro, you sound like you reading it for radio at first.
I tell you what, I'll blame my friend Shannon. She was on that call. She asked me something this morning. It's a thorn in my side. And speaking of thorns in the side, Paul, how you doing today, man?
Otis, I'm doing well. Camden, also, I'm doing well. Always nice to meet someone else who has a trigger that can be tripped.
When those things happen, that's a great point, Paul. Because all your time as a trial lawyer, I have to imagine that, man, you had those things, but in that professionalism that you had to do, how'd you do that? I mean, help me switch it off, please.
Well, first, I have always been prone to knee-jerk reactions. I'm easily triggered. But what I found was one of my talents as a trial lawyer was finding out what your trigger was.
Ooh.
And tripping it. Because when I had you on the stand, usually with cross-examination, I was looking for the opportunity to interrupt your story and change the narrative. That meant that I had to derail you. And that talent was absolutely about knowing enough about you to be able to do that and gain the advantage. And it worked really well. So the issue is always trying not to let anyone know what triggers me, but absolutely finding out what triggers them. So I can only tell you that it came from experience. I tell everyone I spent law school 50% in the classroom and 50% in the courtroom, because I decided early on I was going to be a trial lawyer. If you said, Paul, go to law school and learn to do wills, I would have cut my throat with a rusty spoon. So I decided I'll take a D in that class if I can go watch a expert practice their craft. And based on that, I decided I was going to be a trial lawyer and I was going to be a good one. And I actually attracted enough attention from those that were practicing law in the courtroom that they were willing to share information with me as long as I did two things. I had to take them to dinner steak dinner, and I also
Cheap bastard.
had to buy him scotch. So, but after spending all that money and time in law school, that was a cheap price to pay to learn the secrets that law school was not going to teach me.
Talking about those secrets and poking people's buttons and that kind of thing. There, I'd love to hear, Paul, the balance of, I mean, frankly, how hard to poke that button. Because I think that's an interesting piece that a lot of leaders can use also. It's like, you want to motivate somebody. I'm out there coaching rugby. Yeah, I could call him all sorts of mean things. But if he turns and wants to fight me, that's not helpful. You got to poke the button just enough to get that energy going, but in the direction that you want it to be. If somebody's on the stand, you don't need them just crying their eyes out. They can't talk. That hurts your outcome there. Talk to us about how you find that balance.
Well, and you do. You have to pay attention to the person when they are going through. Again, I was terrible at direct examination. I was excellent at cross-examination, and that was because I spent the time when the other attorney was with his client on the stand, watching how they reacted to what was being asked of them, and also knowing the questions that weren't being asked. See, by that time, you've gone through discovery. You know the facts of the case. If you don't know the facts of the case, you've not done your job. But what you're after, and by the way, I'll divert a little bit. The secret of being a good trial lawyer, especially a defense trial lawyer, is you have to be a good storyteller. Mm-hmm. Because the facts are going to be what they are. Seldom are you able to change it. What you need to change, though, is the narrative, and that means you take the jury on a storytelling trip. Because since I was a defense lawyer, most of the people I represented were guilty. So federal court, if you're a defense lawyer and the government brings a case against you, 90% of the time you're either going to settle or lose. Mm. Well, my record, and by the way, let me tell you, the metric of success for a federal trial lawyer, a criminal federal trial lawyer, is not winning. It's making sure your client gets the least amount of time. Mm. See, that's considered a victory. If you could be sentenced to 10 years and you only got 7, that was a victory. Mm-hmm. Because I'd convinced the jury in some way not to maximize the penalty. So you have to understand that there's a different concept, a mental concept. So I would listen intently to the direct examination. And after you become experienced, I knew what to ask the person because I'd listened to their answer and realized it was either incomplete, contrived, or just a downright lie. And I got a pretty good BS antenna. You have to have that because everybody lies to you as a lawyer. Your client lies to you because they think that it matters to you that you like them. I told everybody, my client, I said, what matters to me is you can pay me. Skip the like. We're not going to be friends. But the human psychology is you want people to like you. And you think that this person can keep you out of jail. You want them to like you because that relatability is going to make them work harder for you. That's not how it works. I very quickly figured out you're guilty. You're telling me you're not. We're going to go through discovery and the facts are going to show you're guilty. But that doesn't matter to me one way or the other. It's whether or not I can practice my craft in a way that I convince the judge or the jury that you're not as bad as you really are. I called it the hero's journey. I would try to take my scoundrel and turn them not into a hero, but into a recovering scoundrel. Actually, people love scoundrels as long as they're not just psychopaths, because they can relate to being a psycho or to being a scoundrel, right? Everybody's done something that they know that if they were called out on it, they were going to do time. So my deal was, I just want to make you look better than you really are. So at the end of that, you're a recovering scoundrel, and the jury feels comfortable enough giving you less than the government wants from you. Now, I know that makes it sound like I'm a greedy capitalist. Yeah, I was.
Damn, I mean, come on.
Yeah, it paid well, and I loved performing. I love being a trial lawyer. If you do it right, you're a performer. And it's a great thing because it's like I call it also it's verbal combat. The person on the other side is equally as skilled with by the way, when I say equally as skilled, I was a much better storyteller. I mean, that's how I won my cases. I couldn't change the facts. So the other side would manage to get all the facts presented, and then I would go, all right, now I'm going to take this and I'm going to alter the narrative for the jury. I'm going to make them look at it from a different perspective. And so that's how I practice law. And most lawyers you've got to love the performance and the combat. I always looked at the judge as a referee. I was supposed to be fighting this other guy. They're just some rules, right? There's some rules in this thing.
Yeah.
Civility. I always love civility because I'm not civil, right? And so I developed all sorts of tricks that I would be right on the edge of the judge admonishing me, but they wouldn't. And obviously, once they know your tricks, you have to be even more devious. So anyway, I enjoyed the practice of law.
Paul, you'd be a great rugby player. I'd love to have you.
Exactly where I was going. We talk about the dark arts of rugby.
If I hadn't gone to prison and lost the ability to practice law, I'd still be practicing law. It was the best thing I ever did as far as a career.
It's the dark arts, just like in rugby. I mean, it
is absolutely.
Things. So tell us the storytelling origin. That how you. I mean, did you grow up sitting around a campfire as a kid learning about storytelling, or is that where you were in the courtroom as a kid learning about it? How'd you get that?
Oh, I grew up. I'm a farm boy. I grew up on a farm, and Saturday my grandpa would put me in the back of the pickup truck, sitting on a milk crate, dodging tobacco juice when he spit it out the window, and we'd go to town. And you'd go. It was Bedford, Indiana, and there's a town square. And there'd be, produce would be sold, but guess who gathered there? The farmers gathered there, right? They were bringing produce and crops, animals and so I'd be tagging along with Grandpa, and you know what we had? As we made the circuit completely around the courthouse, right? It would be all about the stories, and I was enamored with the stories. Right? It was either current about the crops or about animals, but a lot of it would be about the history or somebody knew who someone. And so, it was nothing but storytelling after storytelling. And you could always tell when there was the guy who was telling the best story. Right? And over a period of time, I would watch that person because, again, I was enthralled with what they were saying. And I started to recognize, I got older, I started to recognize the techniques that were being used to capture attention and retain attention for that period of time that you were engaged with someone. That's how I learned. And then I went to court again. Instead of going to school, I went to court and I watched those lawyers who were excellent at telling the story. And I said, I picked up tips, right? I mean, if you want to learn your craft, you want to find somebody who's really good at it, and steal from them, right? Just why not? Well, first, it was free. I was watching them. But after they would get done, I would, again, as I started to practice law, by the way, I'll tell you my seminal story with this is I decided I'm not a team player. Don't play well with others. So when I got to law school,
there goes the rugby plan. So.
Yeah, right.
So I started my own practice, and amazingly, I got a couple of clients. And my first two trials, I lost, and I was infuriated because I had the facts, and and one of these old trial lawyers came up to me and said, "Hey, for the price of dinner, I'm going to tell you why you're losing." And of course, that's where
these lawyers, Dad. Come on, keep it together.
You get a lot of learning out of it.
He said, "You're really good at the facts, but you're not telling the story." He said, "Nobody cares about the facts unless there's a narrative you can place those facts in that they relate to." And he gave me some tips, and then again, I continued to watch people and trial lawyers who were good. Before you know it, I developed a skill set.
So I got to know because, TV's full of all them kind of courtroom things and drama. Did y'all go hang out, you and the prosecutor go hang out at the bar after court, or is that just
They
TV?
hated me
Yes.
too bad to hang out with me almost because I would embarrass you in a courtroom in a heartbeat. Would not even think twice about making sure the jury knew you were a jerk.
Oh, I love it.
So there was no hanging out afterward. When I was prosecuted by guys that I had been on the other side, and they told me, they said, Glover, if we are able to convict you, we will get angels' wings to go to heaven. And you know what I told them when they said that? I said, bring it on.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they did.
Talking storytelling, there's an interesting piece, which is the hijacking of the other story, which I think is interesting. You were talking about, doing better in the cross-examination. I think a lot of the time when people picture what you're talking about, it's like telling the story. You can't tell a completely separate story. Because if you tell a completely separate story, now I just listen to story one, you say something different. I'm like, ooh, now it doesn't make sense. I'm out of the story. I don't buy into the narrative. It doesn't make sense to me anymore. I'm completely checked out. It's like when you see something weird like you're watching an old timey movie and they have you see a phone or something. You're like, wait, what? This doesn't make sense. This is World War II. So you can't take people out like that. How do you find the ways to steer their story back towards your narrative?
Well, and it's all on accepting what you said is absolutely true, Cam, because if you try to totally discredit the other side, first, you have to remember there's facts, there's evidence that supports their position. You can't say they're lying because nobody buys that. What you're saying, once again, is I want you to look at this situation differently. So I would take the testimony of the person that whenever the person took the stand. And now remember, we've got an opening statement, we have testimony and evidence, and then we have a closing statement. So the concept is, as I work my way through the witnesses, some of them I would leave alone. I would go, if you've ever watched Perry Mason, I'm sure you haven't, but 1950.
I have.
Every once
I'm
in a while,
sorry.
I know the name.
Every once in a while, he would stand up and say, no questions. Why would you question the coroner? You wouldn't question the coroner. Why would you? First, he's going to tell you the truth. So I would look at the witnesses that were going to testify, and I would pick out those that I was not going to question. That allowed the jury to understand that a part of the story was accurate. I wasn't trying to disprove everything, but I would also pick out those vulnerable witnesses that were more opinion than they were fact. Those are the ones that are vulnerable to you going after them and explaining to the jury, this is what they may think happened. That's not what happened. And that would be the opportunity to turn it, right? And start to gain traction. Now remember, I'm not looking to convince all 12 of them. I'm looking to convince one of them. So you not only have to know the story, but you have to be able to relate the story so that the jury is comfortable with it, right? And so that's it. It's an art. I can tell you that a trial attorney is an art, and cross-examination is truly an art. But it gives you the opportunity, if you know what you're doing, to pick and choose what you're going to do with that witness's testimony that turns the narrative into a more favorable one for your client. So all I can tell you is some you did not, some I would go, no questions, Your Honor. But that one that I said, all right, that guy's not likable. Just not. How he talks and everything is not likable. Therefore, if I can look at his testimony and go, the jury doesn't like you anyway. So if I can twist this a little bit, they're going to think, well, maybe this guy is lying. Maybe he's not telling the whole truth, right? That's what we're after. Not partial truth. I'm going to expose you to the whole truth. So being a trial lawyer is an art form. You take the material that you have and you mold it. And if you're good at it, your story's better than their story. Never put my client on the stand. Never. Absolute disaster.
So that's another Hollywood thing, ain't it?
But it's absolutely true because I could control the direct, but I knew this guy. This guy knew he was guilty, right? I mean, this wasn't like I'm innocent. No one ever came in and could convince me they were innocent. So I knew that if I put him up there, the other guy's skilled too. The prosecuting attorney, the other attorney, is skilled. It's not like they were. This was federal court. These are not amateurs. These are professionals. And I knew that if they got hold of this guy at the stand, I was done. And so was he. And it was always interesting to me how the client wanted to testify because he was sure that he could convince the jury. And I said, you're absolutely right. You're going to convince them you're guilty. so,
That's a funny bit
by the
of
way,
ego
anybody
there.
who said, well, you have to put me on the stand, I said, no, I don't have to be your attorney. Mm-hmm. That would be the choice. I had a couple of guys who fired me because I wouldn't put them on the stand. They obviously, and by the way, I went to their trials. They were found guilty. So I was like, all right. And I told them, sucker.
See?
Yeah, exactly. Anyway.
Well,
terrible reputation. By the way, I was the guy that if you wanted me to represent you, it's when you wanted the person with the nickname Mad Dog. That was who I was. If you told me go easy, I was like, not an attorney for you. Mm-hmm. I will burn every bridge. I will destroy every relationship. It will be charred. The earth will be charred by the time I'm done. But that will all be to get you off.
And that's the thing that I wanted to dive into for a minute because I find that a fascinating piece of, and there's some relations that I can take to it. Is there's no, it's not a clean black or white. It's well, you could have gotten 10, but I got you 7, therefore victory, which is an interesting thing. There's no, in my book, there's no clear delineation between win and loss. Is that a common theme, or I mean, how did you overcome that? Because I mean, farm boy growing up, you had some of that black and white, very much going on, and then to become a trial lawyer, and have this gray area of victory. How did you come up with that, and how does that sustain?
Well, you just by the way, I've carried that philosophy over to my coaching practice. I mean, I'm not.
That's where I was going with it, by the way.
Yeah, my moniker is the no BS,
Mm-hmm.
no BS performance coach, and I also have a tagline. I could be wrong, but I'm not. So that is exactly how I look at things. I will tell you the absolute truth, whether you want to hear it or not. And if you can accept the truth as I tell you it, we're going to get along. If you don't, if you can't, then you don't want me as your lawyer or as your coach. I will tell somebody, look, you came in, you told me you were innocent. We've now done discovery. We've taken interrogatories, depositions, and I have now compiled this, and I want you to read it. We've also done yours, right? The other side has taken yours. Now, at the end of the day, I want you to tell me, do they have enough evidence to put you in prison? And by the way, there always was enough evidence. The government doesn't do this for fun. They do this to put you in jail. And I said, so do you think they've got enough to put you in jail? Because I do. What's your opinion? Well, by this time, they figured out that they were in trouble. Right? Because they started off thinking, well, the government doesn't know everything. And they found out the government does know everything. And because they know everything, they're going to go for the full boat when it comes to sentencing. And when someone finally said, oh, my God, they've got me, I said, fine. Now we can start talking. Because I can't get you off. I can tell you right now, we can hang a jury, right? Might get one vote, but they're going to come after you again. Because a hung jury allows the prosecution to now have heard our case in total, right? Not just the facts, but seeing the strategy. And they're going to be ready for this strategy because it only worked once. I can't use the strategy again because they know what it is. And they're going to make sure that if that witness was weak, they won't be weak the next time I talk to them, cross-examine them. So I said, so this is our one shot here. So you've got to accept the fact that you can be found guilty and serve 15 years, or we can go through this and I can get 5 off. If that's unacceptable to you, you need to find somebody else, because anybody who tells you you're innocent and they're going to get you off, that's somebody who's lying to you. At some point, reality has to be in the equation. By the way, that goes with coaching. Right? If you, and let me give you the classic. I just had a year ago, I had a guy who was recommended to me, and we had a conversation. One of the first things that I do if you're going to enter into a coaching relationship is we do a 360-degree review. So your management team is going to get this opportunity to examine you anonymously because it comes back to me. I'm going to compile this information, and then we're going to present it and show where you are really good, where you're mediocre, and where you need to work at improvement. The one that I can count on is communication. Every leader believes they're a great communicator. And I love the one response that I got was, he is a great communicator. He believes that we are communicating by telepathy. So I get this information back and I compile it, and I have the Zoom meeting with the leader, and he's gotten the information, and he's shocked. He's shocked about his scores. Right, and they're low, and communicating, he's terrible. Out of 10, he's a 2, and he goes, I have to really absorb this. That's fine. A week later, he calls me. He says, let's do the 360 again. And I said, well, the deal is at the end of the year engagement, we redo the 360. And by the way, my compensation is based off of the improvement between the initial 360 and the second 360. Right? If you don't improve, I don't get paid. He said, well, no, I want to do it now. I said, okay, tell me why. He said, well, I met with my management team and I told them we're going to do this till we get it right. Needless to say, we did not continue. I said, you're too stupid to be in my program. And that was the end of the conversation. See, now there's somebody who was faced with the facts, but decided for no reason other than he didn't want them or like them or believe them, he was going to do it again. And I would have a client like that, and I would go, no, not with me or not.
He's saying,
So
put me on the stand, Paul. That's what he said. Put me on the stand.
Exactly. I can convince them. No, like I said, my retort was always, yeah, you can convince them that you're guilty.
Yeah.
So, yeah, why would I do that? So anyway, if that clarifies it, that was the routine, and it was a routine. I never met clients are not different from each other. It's kind of like when I go to work as a coach. Everybody believes that they're a unique, they're a snowflake. Totally unique. Well, I'm not saying your DNA isn't different, but you know what? Leadership is a pretty simple concept from my perspective. We just make it complicated. And most people have the same issues with leadership that everybody else does. Why? Well, the workforce is made up of the same people. Right? They belong to a peer group where they all reinforce each other's disabilities. And so we have the same issues that have to be conquered. Communication is the easiest, right? The facts show you're a poor communicator. We work on that first. Why? Well, if that's not the basis for leadership, tell me what it is, because if I can't communicate with you as a leader, then we're not getting anything done. So it is pretty much a routine for me. Every individual, of course, moves either faster or slower. Some people change, some people don't. I mean, obviously, there's other things built into this, but there's a pattern that I can follow, just as I could with a client and the courtroom. I knew what the rules were. I knew the procedure. Once I knew the client, I knew their weak spots. I was able to compensate for them.
How do you, I want to go back to what we were talking about, like hijacking the story. Talk us through how you go to that client and embed yourself into that story. Because, they're going, it's like, I'm the great CEO, I'm a master communicator, all these kind of things. You get the scores, and it's like, ooh, I got to change this story to the point where you're a 2 out of 10. And it's like, that's a hard plot twist to put into that story. How do you go about kind of working those things in to make it more palatable for them? Because at the end of the day, if they, just like in the court case, if they reject the story, then they're done. There's no solution. How do you get them to accept that?
Well, I'm pretty blunt about this stuff. I now have the evidence that it's no longer my opinion. You see, I'm coming in and saying to you after a conversation, you're a terrible communicator, and I can tell you why. They're like, well, you don't know me. You're just making an assumption, blah, blah, blah. When I've taken your team that interacts with you on a daily basis, sometimes for years, and I've gotten their opinion that they never told you, which is an indicator of what the relationship was, no psychological safety, but they've told me. Now I have some objective evidence. See, I look at it the same way the courtroom operated. Once I got through with the discovery, whatever you thought your secret was is no longer a secret to me, because I now have all the information on both sides and I see the true picture. Mm-hmm. That's the true picture. The 360 is the true picture. You don't have to like it, but you have to accept the fact that it is an objective perspective, not my perspective. And that's what we're going to work off of. And I'll give you another one, because, by the way, I do all my work. My coaching work is all done through referral. Mm-hmm. And only 20% of the people who are referred to me, the leaders, ever do business with me. Because this process for me is weeding out those that either can't take the truth or not going to do the hard work. Because I believe that coaching to get outcome is hard. It requires that the person who's engaged with the coach does the hard work. One of my clients gave me 2 references, because I said I need a testimonial. Somebody who's gotten in touch with me, and he said, sure. He said, I'll give you 2. He said, Paul's an acquired taste, like cyanide. I said, well, I don't think I want to use that one.
We won't be putting that one on the website.
That's right. I just keep that one for the story. But the one that he gave me was, he said, Paul's a Sherpa. He will get you to your mountaintop, but he will not carry your pack. And that's coaching. So the concept, by the way, Otis is...
Yeah, he's doing something. We're good. We're going to keep flowing, Paul.
By the way, no, I don't know what it was, but I'm glad I didn't have to see it. So anyway, so the concept for me is, once I've got this subjective evidence, I then will tell you, listen, this is the reality, and this will be what we are working on in the coaching process. And if you can't accept that reality, then you really don't need to be working with me. Because since I base 50% of my compensation on improvement at the end of the year, I've got my skin in the game here, right? I'm telling you, I will put 50% of my compensation over a year into improving you, working with you, not for you, so that you get better, to the point that when we do this 360 at the end of the year, I'm going to be able to point at it and say, I've earned my money. So if someone then says, well, I don't want to do it that way, I have a phrase for that. You're not as smart as you think you are. Mm-hmm. And that often ends the conversation.
So
I'm not into persuading you to enter my coaching program. I'm really not. I got over that. And I'm not going to try to convince you. If what we've done up to this point doesn't convince you, then you need to find somebody else. And by the way, you can find somebody else. There's no question about it. You want to have a coach that wants to be soft and cuddly? Not a problem. They're out there, and they love telling you what you want to hear, because they think that that'll keep them employed. The problem was, it won't make you any better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so true. And by the way, I was just dealing with a communication failure that did not get communicated. So communicated now. What one thing that jumped out at just now jumped out to me was it's an interesting thing of the being the guide in the hero's journey, right? Because that's really, as a coach, what you are. But I'm conflicting that with your Dizzy Dean quote uh, on your site, on your website, which is, of course, one of the best quotes ever. I mean, because I can back it up. How do you handle that dynamic of? I mean, truthfully, this guy's a fucking idiot, and I know better. I know it, but the guiding of someone. Could you walk us through kind of that dilemma and
Well, first, Mike, I don't coach people I don't like.
oh
I
hell
mean,
yeah.
I seriously won't do it. If I find that it's not working, right? Because I look at coaching as an exchange of energy.
Hmm.
Every time we interact, we're going to exchange energy. And the reason I've got 48 people in my coaching program, and a lot of coaches say, "Oh my God, that's absolutely impossible." No, it's not. Every time I'm anal about scheduling and I've got a pattern that I follow. Everybody knows for 12 months that we're going to talk every other week for 30 to 60 minutes, and we're going to keep that schedule. You better be in a coma if you're not going to make a call, or give me the reason why. Obviously, life intrudes, but I pick and choose carefully. If I come to the conclusion that you aren't willing to do the hard work, you know how I know that? Because we've got an action plan in place for 12 months. We've established what you want to accomplish. And based on that, we reverse engineer back so that every other week we have that conversation. But it's nice to have a conversation. I like to talk, obviously, and I enjoy listening too. You wouldn't believe that, but I do. But
Sorry, I'm stealing that one.
what we do is between every 2 weeks, we have action steps that you are going to take to get to a point where we can see progress. So after the when we set whatever that action step is, usually one, no more than three, for that 2 week period. When we have our next conversation, you're going to tell me what you did to accomplish those three steps. And if the answer is nothing, we've got a problem. Mm-hmm. If the answer is I did these three things or I did this one thing, but it didn't go well, we now have a conversation about why. Because part of coaching is being able to obviously teach. Hmm. And so you're going to take me through this. But we have very concrete steps that show we're engaged in doing the work. So all I want you to do is do the work. I'm going to help you. I'm going to, by the way, I a little bit different than most coaches. I do have an opinion. And I'm going to give you my opinion when I think you need it. Mm-hmm. You're entitled to your opinion. And I hope you give it to me because I could be wrong, but I'm not. But I need to hear you tell me why you think I'm wrong so that we can have that discussion. And therefore, when we completed that discussion, you will either have modified how you're doing what you're doing, decided to continue to do it, or changed it. I mean, I'm looking for one of three outcomes here. I'm okay if at the end of the day you go, listen, I've heard what you have to say. I don't agree with it, and I am going to continue to do this. I'm going to say, look, I'm okay with that, except we now have to measure outcome. Because at the end of the year, you're going to measure my outcome. So you're going to have to convince me that this is right. I hear what you say. You're going to convince me by continuing to do what you say and telling me what the results are. Because if the results are good, then I'm like, it works for you, I'm cool. If the results are bad, you need to stop it. You need to change it. So very much in the moment. I'm coaching in the moment. Every 2 weeks is a short period of time. Right? It shoots by like that. I can always tell when on the 13th day, someone is trying to get their shit together to have a conversation with me the next day. Oh yeah, I called 14 people last night. I understand you didn't do your homework. So
I don't know
so
why I
it,
couldn't
it's
get a hold of 12 of the 14 people last night at 9 o'clock at night.
That's exactly right. So no, it is a process of not persuading, not convincing, but allowing them to come to the conclusion that I know what I'm talking about, and therefore, if they do what I'm suggesting they do, I've got an opinion, it works. But during that process, as we become comfortable with each other, there's an exchange of energy. When I get off, for instance, I'm loving this. Obviously, I love this conversation. I'm having a lot of fun just talking to you guys, and it's basically unstructured. You ask a question. Obviously, I've got an answer. Why wouldn't I? You're asking about me. But when I get off with one of my clients, I am actually energized. I'm like, that was a good conversation. If I get off and it was a bad conversation, I have to reflect on what did not go right. So because of that, I developed the relationship, and over a period of time, because I can show you why I'm right. Hell, I've been doing this for 30 years. There is not a problem, a situation that I have not heard about, have an opinion about, help someone solve. I mean, nothing but the bank of experience gives me enough to draw from that I can tell you what the answer is probably going to be. You get to make modifications so you're comfortable with it. My deal is never change your message, change how you deliver the message. That to me is leadership. Why? There's only so many solutions to every leadership problem. I don't care what it is. The question is how you deliver that solution.
That makes me think of the phrase of like history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. Leadership, it's all very different, but there's those core principles there. What do you do, Paul, and I don't know how to make this analogy completely work, so sorry, I know you'll know what I mean, but what do you do to understand that rhyme, to understand the new situation, to kind of stay proactive with it, not trying to retrofit things to old solutions?
Well, I do think that the delivering the message has changed dramatically. But you know what hasn't changed? Human psychology.
Yeah.
Human psychology, we are so slow to evolve. I mean, I'm shocked that we managed to make it out of the tree, and then we managed to somehow figure out put on clothes. Here's how we work it. Think about a team running down a mastodon. Who the hell ever thought that was going to work? I mean, somebody finally said, dude, I've been trying to kill this thing by myself for like, I don't know, a month. I need some help here. So think about this. The psychology of leadership and teamwork has not changed in, I don't know, pick a number, 80,000 years? And I don't see it changing now. I mean, so knowing that it's the psychology, then I'm more than willing to look at different techniques. And I stay really current on that stuff because I'm fascinated by it, right? It's the technique. A couple of things. I think that a leadership thing that we often forget about, I believe that leaders have to be perpetually curious.
Yeah.
You've got to be curious. I also believe that you've got a limited life as a leader, 10 years. That's a decade. A new generation that's coming into the workforce. You know how difficult it is to take what made you successful, Marshall Goldsmith's book. What got you here will not get you there. It's true. I would suggest to you, if you've been successful for 10 years and you can't retire, you're in the wrong company. So take your 10 years, go do it right, be successful, but recognize that it's your time on the stage is limited. Some people make it 15. Sure. But hell, we don't let people be president for more than 8 because we can't stand them. Right? There has to be term limitation. There should be in Congress. So anyway, yeah, it's a question of understanding that there's a new workforce that stepped in, technology, artificial intelligence. Whatever it is, you've got to be perpetually curious so you can handle what's happening around you. The first time that you are not perpetually curious, you're going to be trapped in your own echo chamber. And that's when the sycophants are going to be telling you how great you are. And you're going to start believing it. And before you know it, the board's voted you out. Why? Because you're not the greatest thing since, right? You cease to be relevant. I think that that's the whole deal. When do you stop being relevant as a leader? And you know that. I know how you can sense it. Most leaders just refuse to acknowledge it.
Oh, yeah. Jeez.
So no secrets. Human psychology is the same. The delivery to me is more important than anything else. And obviously, working with leaders on how they deliver the message is essential as a part of the coaching program. People who aren't empathetic. Empathy is a skill set. So let's work on you being more empathetic. You're not a critical thinker. It's a skill set. I don't look at leadership as anything but skill sets until you get to delivery.
Yeah. Well, and you know what, a valid point is Marcus Aurelius' Meditations. You pick that book up and it's like, damn, did this dude just write this today? Because
Him complaining about going to work because the people in the Senate are assholes. Yeah.
Yeah. So
like,
no, you're spot on, Otis. I mean, Stoicism has made a comeback. Why? Because there's a realization that it is accurate for leadership.
yeah, and 2,500 years old. Obviously,
Absolutely.
you know, I mean, it's the foundation that doesn't change. You know, the human psychology, like you said, the tools and the clothes we wear may be different, but the psychology of the human dynamic of survival and teamwork and all those sort of things, it ain't changed. And it likely, highly probable, will never change because
We're not going to. We have stopped changing.
yeah.
See, I believe we're waiting for somebody else, some other species, to overtake us. I think that we've gotten as far as we can go. Why? Because 3,500 years have passed, and I know that may sound like a speck of time, but we don't show any proclivity to change. We can't get over tribalism. I mean, we're still going to kill each other off if we believe in worshiping God differently. So I look at that and I go, wow, all right. Anyway, different topic. But so when it comes to leadership is nothing but putting together a network of skill sets and learning how to deliver the message so that people not only understand it but are willing to accept it. I tell people, if as a leader you want to be friends, you're in the wrong game. You want to be respected. If you can be respected, you've done your job.
Yeah, yeah, and that I think that's a hard thing for people to back to the human psychology because we all want.
Well, that's because we all want to be loved, don't we? I mean, we want people to hug us, and it's that I tell people if you want to. Fulfillment does not come from work. Satisfaction comes from work. Fulfillment comes from what you do away from work. How about your family, your friends, your community? If that's what you want, that's where you get that. But if you think you're going to get it at work, no, that's not what work is structured to do. But you can get satisfaction. You should get satisfaction. If you're not satisfied, and everybody who's looking for some deep purpose at work, I guess how about that? It's called nonprofit. Go work in the nonprofit sector. You'll find plenty of purpose and no money.
Yeah.
Once you're looking for the money, you have to understand the concept of satisfaction is the best you're going to get.
Yeah. Yeah, and in the interest of that continuing to learn and innovate, you said something I thought was really interesting, and I never thought about it. It's so simple. It's how in groups of people we reinforce our disabilities. I was like, as I reflect back on all the organizations I've been part of, yeah, if you're not paying attention, that's exactly what's going on in that team. So. Camden, how about you? What'd you learn?
Yeah, I think, we talked a handful of times, Dad, about the sigmoid performance curves and that whole thing in the sports application especially. But I think, Paul, what you were saying of like that 10-year leadership space, like or the 10-year leadership cycle, that's really the same thing. It's like, hey, could I do 12? Yeah, but you better get your ass out of there before you tank the business. Bring someone else in, hop to that next performance curve.
There you
Spot
go.
on. And by the way, yes, you last longer? You can, but you're an anomaly. How
Yeah.
many anomalies are there? You can look at sports. How many Tom Brady's are there? One.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, not 10. There's one. If you think you're going to be Tom Brady, have at it. The odds do not favor you.
And even thinking about those curves, even if you are going to keep going, you're doing this. You're not doing this anymore.
You're absolutely right. Plus, I think clearly the concept of maintaining velocity is something that at some point you just start to lose it naturally. Some people, super agers, they're able to overcome what I think the natural laws are of aging. By the way, we're living now. Heck, obviously, we managed to figure some of it out. But just because we're living longer doesn't mean that we're any better. We're just living longer.
Just living longer. That dude's
Yeah.
still around. Jeez.
Oh yeah.
Paul, how about you, man? What'd you learn today?
I learned that you guys run a pretty good podcast. I've enjoyed it. Like I said, you guys gave me the questions that obviously tripped my trigger, and I appreciated that. It's an intelligent conversation. Obviously, what can I say otherwise since I'm involved in it? So good job, you guys.
Thanks, man. Paul, how do folks find you, get in contact with you, maybe get told that they're full of BS by you?
Hey, first, I've got a YouTube channel for anyone who's interested. It's Paul Glover Coaching. I'm also trying to be a more engaged speaker. I've got Paul Glover Speaks. So anybody who's looking for someone who would deliver this message to their audience, I'm available for that. I do charge. And I charge a lot. But the message is powerful, it's entertaining, and you'll get a return on the investment. And the final thing is, I I just celebrated 24 years of freedom on June 6th, and for some reason, there's a speakers bureau who reached out to me and said they wanted to represent me, and I was flattered because no one has ever said that to me. But they said the only way we'll do it is you write a book. And I've written a book, and I hate writing. I love to speak. I hate to write. But they said, listen, you've got a story to tell about failure and recovery. Going to prison, 5.5 years, ruining. And by the way, I was absolutely guilty. Ruined my career, just about destroyed my family. And after 5.5 years, by the way, I'll throw in as an aside. I thought that I was sentenced to too much time, and I challenged the sentencing guidelines, took it to the Supreme Court, and won from prison. And I tell everybody, I'm not proud of the fact I went to prison. I'm proud that I survived the experience. And that to me is my message. So I'm in the process now of going through 2,000 pages of prison letters that I sent people. And I'm going to write a book that connects my experience to leadership. Now, that by itself sounds pretty weird. So, if nothing else, it should be a strange book to read. So, I'm going to be publishing that. My goal is when I hit June 6th of next year, will be 25 years, I will have that book out.
Awesome. Well, we're looking forward to that.
I'm sorry, I gotta say it because I was thinking it's like, yeah, you call it prison leadership, and it's like, ooh, that might get bought by the wrong folks. That might not be the right book to sell.
We're gonna see.
Yeah,
we'll workshop it. We'll talk offline, Paul.
Yeah. Paul, it has been a lot of fun having you on the show today. Thank you for your time and insights.
Thank you, gentlemen. It has been a pleasure.
Camden, run us out.
All right. Thank y'all for listening to today's episode of 10X Your Team with Cam and Otis. And a special thanks to our guest, Paul Glover, for joining us today. Remember, you can watch full episodes of the show on YouTube at 10X Your Team. If you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to pass it along to other lifelong learners in your tribe so that they can enjoy it too. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. As always, that full archive of episodes available at www.10xyourteam.net. Thanks again, and we'll see y'all next time.